Good evening, everyone, and a good Yom Tov. Today is Yud Ches Elul, Chai Elul, which is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, and perhaps more relevant to us, the birthday of the one whose sefer we've been learning every week, every Thursday for the past many years. A very special day. We'll talk more about Chai Elul and Hashem as we continue in the evening. But today we are going to start a new siman. Today we're going to start siman Yud Beis in Iggeres HaKodesh, which is on page Kuf Yud Zayin, opposite of page 232. And without further ado, let's get started. It's a letter about tzedakah, right? Surprise, surprise.
That's his favorite topic.
Siman Yud Beis. The Alter Rebbe begins with a pasuk from Yeshaya, where Yeshaya says, "V'hoya ma'aseh hatzedakah shalom." Va'avodas hatzdaka hashket ubetach ad olam. So the Navi says that the reward for ma'aseh hatzdaka, for the act of tzedakah, is shalom, is peace. Va'avodas hatzdaka, the service of tzedakah, that brings hashket ubetach ad olam, which means that brings tranquility and confidence, security forever.
What's a voice that stuff?
So the first question we have is, what is the difference between Ma'aseh HaTzedakah and Avodas HaTzedakah? Ma'aseh HaTzedakah is the act of tzedakah. Avodas HaTzedakah is the avodah, the service of tzedakah. What's the difference between the two? And obviously there is a difference, because the Navi brings them down as two separate things, Ma'aseh HaTzedakah and Avodas HaTzedakah. And moreover, not only are they two different things, or because they're two different things, so the reward for them is different. The reward for Ma'aseh HaTzedakah is Shalom, which is peace. The reward for Avodas HaTzedakah, the service of tzedakah, is Hashket Ubetach Ad Olam, which means tranquility and security forever. And we have to understand what is the difference between Shalom, between peace on one side, which is the reward for Ma'aseh HaTzedakah. So what's the difference between Shalom and Hashket Ubetach?
They're both the same.
Which is tranquility and security. L'chayra, yeah, they sound very similar. So Ma'aseh HaTzedakah. So l'chayra, Ma'aseh HaTzedakah and Avodas HaTzedakah sounds very much the same. And the same thing is Shalom and Hashket Ubetach sounds very much the same.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between this? And as we've mentioned many times, that if you look at the Mefarshi Tanakh, in many such instances, especially if you look in the Mesudas, they'll say that Kafal ha'inyin b'milim shoynes l'yofi hamlitza, which means that the Navi will repeat the same thing using different words. L'yofi hamlitza. It's for poetic purposes. So as a writer, which that's what I do in my spare time, so I know that there's this idea that sometimes you can repeat the same idea in different words, and each time using somewhat different words, it sounds nice, but practically it means the same thing. So although that al derech hapshat, that's taka a way of learning Tanakh, al derech hapshat, you could say it's taka the same thing. The first half of the pasuk and the second half of the pasuk are the same thing. But obviously, if we go a little deeper, definitely al derech hasoid. So we know that there's al derech hasoid, there's definitely no such thing as repeating something in different words just for poetic purposes, but there's great precision and great diuk in every single word, and if there's used two different words and they're different, it's because there's a different different message in each one of them. And Alter Rebbe says, so the Alter Rebbe, first Alter Rebbe lays out the question, Lahavana Hefresh, to understand the difference, Sheben Ma'aseh L'Avodah, what is the difference between Ma'aseh HaTzedakah and Avodas HaTzedakah? Ubein Shalom L'Hashket Ubetach. We have to understand the difference between Shalom and Hashket Ubetach. So the first thing that we're going to do, we have a lot of terms we have to explain, right? We have to explain Shalom, Hashket Ubetach, Ma'aseh, Avodah. The first of the terms that we're going to explain over here, that the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, is what does it mean Shalom? So Al Pi Mashra Razal, it's based on what Razal say, Al Pasuk Oisa Shalom B'Meremav. There's a pasuk in Iyov which says the full words of the pasuk is Hamshel v'fachad imoy Oisa Shalom b'meremav. So Oisa Shalom b'meremav, we all know from davening. We say it several times a day. The words Hamshel v'fachad imay, most of us don't know. But now that you heard these words, you'll keep an eye out for it. And Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I don't remember which one, but in one of the piyutim we have those words Hamshel v'fachad imay, which is again a pasuk in Eiv, followed by the words Oisa Shalom b'meremav. What is Oisa? We'll get back to Hamshel v'fachad imay in a moment. But what is Oisa Shalom? The literal translation is Hamshel is sovereignty, v'fachad and awe, imay is with Hashem, Oisa Shalom b'meremav. But before we get to the Hamshel v'fachad imay, the Oisa Shalom b'meremav we need to understand. We say this every day. Oisa Shalom b'meremav, the one who makes peace b'meremav in his heavens. Hu yasa shalom aleinu, he should make peace also upon us.
So what's peace in heaven?
What's peace in heaven? Exactly.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
I know what shalom down here.
Right. So down here, if you're the Rav in a shul, there are shul politics. And very often the biggest part of the being a Rav of shul is Oisa Shalom, is making peace between people. Because Ein Day is saying Shabbos, and people have egos, and people have agendas, and people have different opinions. I think there is no Rav today who isn't worried about masks and no masks, and vaccines and no vaccines, and the Rav is a busy Oisa Shalom. But what kind of shul politics is there in heaven that the Eibishter has to make Shalom? Are the Malachim busy fighting with each other? There's politics in Gan Eden. They're bickering with each other. So what's going on? So what does this Oisa Shalom b'meremav mean? What does Oisa Shalom b'meremav mean? Why would it be necessary? If in heaven it's necessary for Hashem to make Shalom, is that really a place we want to go to? I thought that was the place where you don't have to worry about these mishigasan and these petty, the petty politics and the petty arguments. So the Medrash explains, and the Medrash says actually that Oisa Shalom b'meremav is a reference to a very particular incident that happened. Yeah, when there was a necessity to make peace in heaven, and it wasn't about masks or no masks. That wasn't masks in Gan Eden or no masks in Gan Eden. That wasn't the issue at hand. What was the issue at hand? So what happened was, this was a few thousand years ago, and the Eibishter was in middle of destroying Mitzrayim and making a mockery out of them, as the pasuk says. Right, Laman Tesaper. You should tell your children, Eis asher his alalti b'Mitzrayim. Hashem says, you'll tell them, that I played around with them. And the Eibishter came up with this idea. He says, you know what, I have a great idea. I have to make 10 makkos. I have an idea for one of the makkos. I am going to bring hail on Mitzrayim. But you know what? Hail on its own, I'm gonna do better than that. I'm gonna add a little flair over here, and there's gonna be fire in the hail. That's a trick. Right? Aish. Right?
But hail and fire are both antagonistic.
So the Eibishter saw you can make hail and put fire in it. There's a problem over here. The problem is
you extinguish the fire.
That either the water is going to extinguish the fire, or if the fire is too powerful, the fire will evaporate the water. So what do? How do you get fire? How do you get fire and water to coexist? So the answer to that question is, don't look at the symptom, look at the cause. Why don't fire and water coexist? Everything here in this physical world, something which we've spoken about many times, everything here in this physical world is merely a manifestation, what we call in Lashon HaKodesh, a hishtalshelus, of the realities that exist on higher worlds. That means in the heaven there's Eish and Mayim, there's spiritual fire and there's spiritual water. And because in heaven fire and water don't get along with each other, so therefore Begashmi is also physically fire and water can't coexist. So if you want fire and water over here in this world to coexist, as was the case of Makas Barad, so the way to remedy the situation is you have to Oisa Shalom b'meremav, you have to make peace between the heavenly fire and water, and once you make peace in the heavenly fire and water, then automatically then the fire and water down here can coexist. What is the heavenly fire and water? The heavenly fire and water is, as Sasson mentioned, is Michal and Gavriel. Malach Michal represents water, and Malach Gavriel represents fire. And that's what Chazal say, and Hamshel v'fachad imoy, that Hamshel is Malach Michal, And Pachad refers to Malach Gavriel. Hamshel v'Fachad imay, that both Michal and Gavriel are with Hashem, and therefore Isha Shalom B'mreimov is able to make peace. So here we have Michal and Gavriel. Michal was the Sar Shalmayim, the archangel of water, and Gavriel is the Sar Shal Eish, and they don't get along with each other. Why don't they get along with each other? Again, the fact that fire and water over here in this world can't coexist is because Michal and Gavriel don't get along with each other. Why don't they get along with each other?
Because they're in charge
It's politics.
No, but the Malachim upstairs are in charge of the Mayim and the fire and water and below him. No?
Yeah, it's true, but you're reversing it. You're making the cause the effect and the effect the cause. Whatever happens down here is because of what happens up there. You're saying...
But they're managing it. They're causing
again,
whatever happens.
What you're saying is that the reason why they don't get along is because what happens down here. No.
No, I didn't say that.
That is what you said. It's the other way.
Well, it comes
saying
out that way.
it's the
You're right.
So you're making
same.
right. You're making the effect come before the cause. We have to understand the spiritual cause. And the reason why is explained in Chassidus, and I'm pretty sure we've mentioned this in the past, is that Michal is Chesed and Gavriel is Gevura. And Chesed and Gevura don't get along with each other. Why don't they get along with each other? They don't agree. It's a completely different worldview, a completely different philosophy, different perspective on everything. So there isn't what to get along with each other. What is Chesed? What is Gevura? Okay, so let us look at water and fire. And from here, because since water is Chesed, represents Chesed, and fire represents Gevura, so by looking at water and fire, we'll get some sort of idea of what Chesed and Gevura is. One of the primary differences between fire and water is that fire is always ascending upwards, whereas water descends. As the Gemara says, Mayim Yerden memakim gevoya lamakim namuch. So Gevura is the idea of descend. Chesed is the idea of Mayim, which is descending, and Gevura is like fire, which ascends. Chesed and Gevura. Some people think Chesed is good and Gevura is bad. There's that common misconception out there. Or Chesed means to give and Gevura means not to give. Neither of those is correct. Chesed and Gevura are both midos of Hashem. And Hashem gives. Chesed and Gevura are both expressions of Hashem. They're both midos of Atzilus. And one of the most defining characteristics of Hashem and of Kedusha is that it's mashpia, it gives. The opposite of that is klipa. Klipa, as the Alter Rebbe says earlier on in Tanya, if you look in Perek Chav, Chav Daled on page 60, the Alter Rebbe says over there that the lowest klipa is a yitush. A yitush, which is kind of, it's translated as a mosquito or sometimes as a gnat. And why is it the lowest klipa? So Alter Rebbe says, Shemachnis ve'eni moitzi, because this insect, it takes in and it doesn't excrete. In different words, it eats, but it doesn't let anything out. Shehia klipa hayoyser tachtoina. The Alter Rebbe says over there, that is the lowest klipa. And so distant from Kedusha. Hamashpas betachlis harichuk. Because the signature of Kedusha is that it's always mashpia, it gives, and it gives even to those that are far away from it. There's a pasuk, I don't remember where, but the pasuk that says, Ula'aluka shteibanis. This is a klipas compared to aluka, to a leech. And the signature of klipa is hav v'haliteni. Klipa is always saying, give me, fill me up. Klipa is self-centered and self-focused. It's not interested in giving, it's interested in taking. And Even when Klippa gives, it's not really giving. It's like when you give because you want recognition, or because you want, or you want to be repaid one day. Klippa doesn't give. Klippa takes. Kedusha is the opposite. Kedusha gives. And Midas Hadin, Gevura of Hashem, is Kedusha. So Kedusha, Gevura gives, Chesed gives, Gevura gives. Every one of the Midas gives. So what's the difference between Chesed and Gevura? It's not about whether to give. The difference in opinion between Chesed and Gevura, the difference in approach between the two of them is not in whether to give, but in how to give. What is the most proper and effective way to give? Now, whenever you're giving, so there is a higher one and a lower one. Think about that for a second. If I'm giving something to someone, then I'm higher than that person in whichever area that I'm giving, which is why I am able to give and why that one needs to receive. I have something that person doesn't have, so I'm higher than that person. I'm not talking spatially higher, but in whichever area that I'm giving, I'm higher. What is the ultimate way of giving? How are we supposed to give? Am I supposed to say, okay, you remain where you are on your level, which is lower than me, and I'm going to be mashpia to you. I will give you, I will shower you with, or is the ideal way of giving the opposite way? To say to the person, no. I want you to come up to my level, and then you will receive. But when you come up to my level, why are you going to receive? Because you deserve it. Because when you're on my level, you have it just like I have it. How did I got it? I earned it. So are we giving handouts, which is the idea of chesed?
Yeah.
Or are we saying, no, I'm not creating a welfare state over here. I'm not giving out. You're going to earn it. You're going to work for it. I give you based on based on merit, based on what you earn, and based on what you deserve. Chesed has the former. Chesed is about giving, and giving indiscriminately. And that's why chesed is compared to water, which chesed is always going down. Because the idea of chesed is, I'm giving to the people lower than me. They remain lower than me. They remain undeserving. And nevertheless, I'm giving to them. That's what chesed is. And gvura is, no, if I'm going to give, it's going to be, I'm going to lift the person. The person's going to have to lift themselves up and come to higher madrega, at which point they will have earned it and they will have deserved it. So Michal stands for chesed. Gavriel stands for gevura. And they don't get along. Now, you need to understand. Let's say I'm a Baal Chesed, for argument's sake. And for argument's sake, let's say that Reuven over here is a Baal Gevura. You're not objecting.
No, I'd look like it.
No. The main thing is because there's nothing wrong with being a Baal Gevura. Based on what we explained just now, you realize Chesed and Gevura are both midas of Hashem. They're both. When we talk about Hashem, we say Hakel HaGodel VaGiber. Godel is Chesed, and Giber is Gevura, and they're both wonderful traits. But if you have one person who's a Baal Chesed, another person who's a Baal Gevura, can they get along with each other?
They can work together.
Can they get along with each other?
Because Gevura puts a Gevur on Chesed. Without Gevura, it will be unlimited Chesed. And Gevura without Chesed will be unlimited Gevura. Each one...
Reuven, that's very nice, but what I'm asking is a yes or no question. Can a Baal Chesed and a Baal Gevura get along with each other?
Why not?
They could.
They can work good. That's what I'm saying.
By a traffic light, that's about it.
What?
By a traffic light.
What do you mean?
They're not showing both of them standing.
Green. But once it goes.
In the world, in fact, there's even a saying, I don't know how accurate it is, but opposites attract.
That's right.
And what does opposites attract? That many times, I'm sure everyone over here knows a couple or two where the husband and wife are radically very different from each other, and very possibly one is more of a Baal Chesed and one of them is more Baal Gevura, and they're perfect. So why can't Michal and Gavriel get along? Why do you have to have a Shalom? Why can't Michal and Gavriel get along with each other? Just because one of them is a Baal Chesed and one of them is a Baal Gevura, why is it stopping them? But there's a major difference over here. Let's say I'm a Baal Chesed. Do I have Gevura within me? Sorry?
You're Baal Chesed?
Yeah.
Do you have Gevura?
Yeah.
Why not?
You might have a mixture of it.
A human
Could be
being,
90%
every human being has,
certain.
right? If I was only a Baal Chesed, then it would be illegal for me to have a child. I would not know how to discipline my child or to say a harsh word to my child or anything. Even a Baal Chesed. The difference between a Baal Chesed and a Baal Gvura is about the predominance. And a Baal Gvura also has Chesed. Right? The question is, which one of these traits is more dominant? So first of all, a Baal Chesed and a Baal Gvura can get along with each other. Why? I'm a Baal Chesed, you're a Baal Gvura. Okay. I also appreciate Gvura. You also appreciate Chesed. After all, even if I'm a Baal Chesed, I have Gvura inside me. Even if you're a Baal Gvura, you have Chesed inside you. There's place where to meet.
There's common good.
There's common ground, right?
Common good, common.
But there's another thing also, which is that even if I'm a Baal Chesed and you're a Baal Gvura, do you like pizza?
Sure.
And I like pizza. We both like pizza. So that's a common ground that we have. What do I mean by that? I mean, even if you're a Baal Chesed, you're not Chesed. You're a person, and you have a strong attribute of Chesed. I'm not of Gevura. I'm not Chesed. That's not my definition. My name isn't Chesed. My name is Naftali Eliezer, right? I am a person, and I have other. Like I said, I like pizza also, right? One of the things about me is that I like. So a Baal Chesed and a Baal Gvura can get along with each other. First of all, because even the Baal Chesed has Gvura and the Baal Gvura has Chesed. That's number one. Number two, also, the Baal Chesed isn't defined by Chesed. The Baal Gvura isn't defined by Gvura. That's one aspect of them. The human being is greater than Chesed or Gvura. Michal and Gavriel, on the other hand, there's a difference between Malachim and human beings. Human beings are multidimensional. Malachim are not multidimensional. Malachim are unidimensional. Michal is Chesed. Not he has Chesed. Not he's dominated by Chesed. Michal is Chesed. Gavriel is Gevura. You know, famously, it says that one malach can't do two shlichusim. You ever wondered about that?
With Abraham, yeah.
It's just like a robot. They have no bechira.
What does that do with bechira?
They do
The malach who turned over Stem, that's a pretty incredible feat. The Eibishter couldn't say, oh, and by the way, also take light out. What does it mean?
I can make a malach to do two shlichus.
Why can't the malach do more than one shlichus?
Because you want him to concentrate.
Us limited people with limited koyach, I can't turn over a city. And I can do many, many different things. A malach, with all the power and strength of a malach who's a shliach of Hashem, a malach can't do two things. It's one, that's what we call a klotz kasha. We learn it every single year. A malach, one malach can't do two shlichas. And you ever stopped and looked back and wondered why?
Why?
Why not? If he has the ability to turn over a city, he can't also pull out light. Oh, that I can't do. That's too hard. Turn over, Stoim Amayra, Admat Zvoim, and whatever. And the Gofris of Melach, the fire and the brimstone. That's good. That's fine. But to pull out and to heal Sarah, that I can't do.
Maybe when Hashem give the malach shlichut, you want him to concentrate only on the shlichut, not to look.
Why?
Why?
You can do it better. If you do only this, you don't look what's going on.
1 second.
I can do it 100%.
How many things do you do every single day?
Million things.
Okay. And how are you compared to a malach? Can you turn over his time? No. So if you can do a million things, a malach can definitely do two things. Or also a million things.
It's true.
It's not, anyways. But once you understand, you are a human being who is multifaceted. A human being is multifaceted, multidimensional. And therefore we can do a wide variety and wide range of things. We have Chesed, Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and each one of these mixes, these are like the primary colors, and then you mix them together and you can get an unlimited amount of abilities and talents and perspectives. A malach is not that way. Every malach is a very, very pure expression of a certain spiritual reality. And therefore the malach can only do exactly what that shlichus that it was told to do. Because that's the shlichus that it is created for and that it's suited for. It can't do anything otherwise. The Malach is so much more powerful than us, but it's one dimension only.
Why?
But that is a Malach. A Malach.
What's the wisdom?
So, for example, as we're saying, Michal is only Chesed. Gavriel is only Gvura. Michal can't do an act of Gevura. Not because he's not strong enough, because he is the essence of Chesed.
Is a sphere of the same thing?
Sorry?
Is a sphere of chesed, for example, and Michal the same thing?
No, because the Sfira is Olakus and Michal is a Nivra. But at the end of the day, Michal is Chesed. He's not Midas HaChesed of Hashem. Midas HaChesed is an Atzilus, but he's an expression of Chesed. His whole Metzius is Chesed. So Michal, he has tens of thousands of malachim that are underneath him, and each one of the malach is a slightly different variety of Chesed, and their avodah, day and night, is Avas Hashem, because Chesed and Av are synonymous with each other. And then you have Gavriel, who he has his troops of malachim. Each one of them is Gefura and Yira, and they sit the whole day and they tremble. Me'emo pachad, right? Hamshel v'fachad imoy. The pachad of Hashem. So Michal and Gavriel can't get along with each other. Why? Because Chesed and Gevura can't get along with each other. Because they're opposing ideologies. Me, who has Chesed, and you, who has Gevura, we can get along with each other. Because I'm not Chesed, you're not Gevura. But Chesed and Gevura, actually, they're fire and water. And fire and water, again, Chesed is a worldview which is a very absolute worldview in one way. Gvura is a very absolute worldview in another way. They don't get along with each other. I don't mean that they're punching and kicking each other. I don't mean when I say they don't get along with each other. I don't mean, but there is no way for them to cooperate. They have nothing in common. This is the problem that Hashem encountered when he wanted to bring Makas Barad. When he wanted to bring the Makkah of Barad, he wanted to get the fire and water. But to get the fire and water to coexist, you need to fix the source. You need to fix the source issue, the source problem.
Shalom.
I'll give you an example. Imagine you have a computer screen. And there's problems, the colors on the computer screen. You don't like the colors on the computer screen. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take a magic marker and start fixing it?
You ruin it.
No. Not because you ruin it. Because the colors that you see on the screen, the problem isn't the colors on the screen. The problem is the way that it's coded and the program that you're using. You have to fix up the coding and it fixes it automatically. You don't fix the fire and water issue down here. You go to the coding of it. You understand? You go to the source, the code. The code is Michal and Gavriel. They don't get along with each other. That's why fire and water can't coexist. Fix that, and everything becomes beseder. So how do you make shalom between Michal and Gavriel? Before we go there, let's do inside a little bit. Alter Rebbe is going to describe the problem before we get to the solution. 3 lines from the top of the Siman. To understand everything, to understand as I said, we want to understand what shalom is based on what Chazal say. Al pasuk and the pasuk Eisha Shalom b'Mneimav. Chazal tell us ki Michal is Sar Shalmaim. Michal is the archangel of water. The Gavriel Sar Shalitz. Gavriel is the archangel of fire. Ve'ein mechabin zeh. And the Eibishter needed to get the Eisha Shalom b'Mneimav. They're making the peace in heavens that the Eibishter should get, that Michal and Gavriel shouldn't extinguish each other. Kleimar, meaning Shemachal Sar Shal Chesed Hanikra b'Shem Mayim. Michal is what? He is the Sar, the archangel of Chesed. Hanikra b'Shem Mayim. Chesed is called water. Why water? Because water goes down from, it's constantly descending from a higher level to lower level. And the idea of chesed chesed is always the extension, the giving of energy from the higher worlds to the lower worlds. That's one side. And then, on the other side, you have Mechol, who's fire. Shetiva lalas l'mayla, fire by nature always is ascending upwards. He beginnes hagvura v'istalkus ashpa sachayim matal l'mayla is the opposite. Gvura is histalkus. Gvura is going up. When the ashpa, the energy is moving upwards. Shaloy lashpia rak b'tzimtzum atzum v'rav. Gvura says, if I have to give to lower level, I'm only giving a very, very minuscule amount, because ultimately the goal of Gvura is not to give energy, that the energy should flow downwards, but that those elements that are on a lower level should move upwards. Chesed and Gvura are opposite. They're opposite midas, opposed one to another. But this is only when they're midas. HaKodesh Baruch Hu Eisher Shalom b'neiim. But Hashem makes peace between them. And how does He make peace between them? So let us, we'll do this first outside and then we'll do it inside. How does Hashem make peace between them? Is Mechol really Chesed? And is Gabriel really Gevura? Is that their essential identity?
That's what you said.
Hashem made it.
I know that's what I said before. But they have a deeper essential identity. What is their deeper essential identity? Hint, Malach Mechol and Malach Gabriel. At the end of the day, the Chesed of Mechol, what is it? It's a tool. And what's it a tool for? A tool in the service of Hashem. A Malach, ultimately, as we call Malachi Hasharis, they're there to serve. That is their essence. Their essence is that they're there to serve Hashem. The question is now how they serve Hashem. Mechol serves Hashem through Chesed, and Gabriel serves Hashem through Gvura. So each one of them has a particular function, and their functions that they have don't get along with each other. They don't agree with each other. But at their essential level, are they incompatible with each other? At their essential level, what is Mechol? An Eved Hashem. And what is Gabriel?
Eved Hashem.
An Eved Hashem.
That's the common good they have.
That's the commonality they have. So we have, the Chassidus is brought down a mashal. Imagine you have a king, and a king has different ministers. And sometimes the ministers, their positions actually cause them to have conflicting interests with each other. So let's say you have we saw the Sar HaChutz, the foreign minister. And then you have the Sar HaPrim, which is the minister of the interior. Now, essentially, they're actually in conflict with each other. Why? Because they both look at the royal treasury, and one of them says, the foreign ministry, their thoughts are only about, improving the standing and the relationship of the nation vis-a-vis other countries. The interior minister is busy thinking about
domestic.
So they're busy competing. They're always competing for the same resources. They're competing for the attention, perhaps, of the same people. They both might be looking to hire the best talent, and they're competing for the best talent. And they really have little in common with each other. Think about it. One of them is thinking entirely about outside the country, and one of them is thinking about entirely inside the country. And it's very easy to conceive of these two people as being at odds with each other. They're at odds with each other until the king summons them into the room. When they're standing in front of the king, they're not at odds with each other anymore. Why not? Makara. Plus, when they stand in front of the king, as long as the foreign minister is sitting in his office, I'm an all-important foreign minister, and my job is for the diplomacy and everything, and for the interior minister sitting in his office, and he's thinking that my job is, making sure that the farmers in Iowa have enough corn, whatever. And very often they lose sight of the fact. It's very easy for them to lose sight of the fact that what is their essential identities is servants of the king. And they're both there as servants of the king. When they walk in front of the king, suddenly they both become completely in this battle to the king. They become completely nullified to the king, and suddenly, I'm a servant, you're a servant, you need us to work together? Sure, we're both here to serve you. And everything, all of the disagreements dissolve. So, Shalom b'midoimav. HaKodesh Baruch Hu calls in Michal and Gavriel and says to them, I need you to make peace, and boom, they made peace with each other. Because the moment they're in the presence of HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Michal forgets that he's Chesed, and Gavriel forgets that he's Gevura, and they just realize that both of them realize we're servants of Hashem, and you know what Hashem wants right now? Right now Hashem wants hail. That's what he wants. He wants fire in the ice. Yes, your majesty. Done. That's how Oiseh Shalom b'Meremav happens.
Yes.
Which is a general rule that whenever you have, this is a big rule also in interpersonal relationships, when you have different people and they don't get along with each other, or they have incompatible, you might want to say, personalities. How do we get two incompatible people if they're both bottled to something higher than them? That's the way of getting about that. You know, the most obvious muscle of this is marriage. In the letter for weddings that the Rebbe always sent out, the muscle the Rebbe gives over the words the Rebbe uses over there is, if you ever went to Lubavitcher Chasana, so you know that the letter is always read under the chuppah. And the letter reads that the Rebbe benches the couple, and they should be zoche to build a binyan adiyad, an everlasting edifice, al yisoidei ha-Torah v'ha-mitzvahs, on the foundation of Torah mitzvahs. What does it mean on the foundation of Torah mitzvahs? It's not just a yuefi ha-militza. Torah mitzvahs is a foundation for a marriage. Why? Because a man and a woman, okay, they meet, they date a few times, boom, boom, oh, I like you, you like me, they get married. 10 months later, we are incompatible. I'm fire, you're water. I'm chesed, you're gvura. What do we do now? And what's the answer? The answer is Oiseh Shalom b'Meremav. If both the man and the woman recognize that ultimately it's not about me. It's not about me and my personality. It's about I'm a Eved Hashem and you're a Eved Hashem, and we're both here in it for the same purpose. That's Oiseh Shalom b'Meremav. The Gemara says, the Gemara famously says, right, Ish v'Isha. So we know that there is the Ish has the Yud and the Isha has the Hey. And when you have the Yud and the Hey, which is Hashem's name, that's when there's the Eibushters in the marriage. That bittul to the Eibushters in the marriage. Then Shechina Shri B'Neima, that's the glue that keeps the couple together. The moment you take out the Yud and the Hey, then you have Eish. Then they burn each other up because of the incompatibility. In a larger sense, the idea of getting two opposing entities together is only by both of them being overwhelmed by something which is higher and greater than both of them. And that's what happened by Michal and Gavriel. Let's do this inside. Actually, I want to start a few words beforehand, 5 lines from the bottom. V'hainu, when is it that Michal and Gavriel can't get along with each other? When each one of them is caught up in the fact that I'm a midah. I'm midas hachesed, and you're midas hagvura. However, HaKodesh Baruch Hu Oiseh Shalom b'Meremav, Hashem makes peace between the two of them. V'hainu, how is that? Ayidei Gilui, through the revelation, Shemizgala b'hen ha'ora rabba v'ashba atzuma ma'oid ma'oid in Seiv Baruch Hu. When there's a revelation upon Michal and Gavriel, a great revelation from the Eir Ein Sof, Asher Kishmo Yikeinu. What is the Eir Ein Sof? Look at the name, as the name implies. The light which is infinite. She'eni bebechinas midah chas v'shalom. It's not a midah. So the word midah means what? We talk about Hashem's midah. A midah is an emotion, but the word midah also means a measurement, right? The Eir Ein Sof is beyond midah. It's beyond measurement, and it's beyond. Yeah. Ela l'mayla mayla indicates the Eir Ein Sof is infinitely higher. Afilu bebechinas chabad makar amidas. Eir Ein Sof, not only is it higher than Not only is it higher than the Midas, the Ein Sof is even higher than Chabad, than the Chachma Bina Das, which is the source of the Midas. Va'azai then, HaMidas Negdi Shal Michal v'Gavriel, the opposing Midas of Michal and Gavriel, Nichlales b'Mekodim v'Sharshan, they become subsumed in their source, the Ein Sof. V'hoyu l'Achadim Mamish, and they can unite. Mamish, they can unite. They become bottle in the Eir of Hashem, which is revealed on them. That's like the mashal of the two ministers that go to the king. Va'azai, and then mismazgim or mismatkim ha'gevuris b'chasadim. Then what happens is, then the gevuris become sweetened within the chasadim, and they become mismazgim. I don't know what the good English word for that is. Like wine. Wine when you pour in water is called mazuk. Diluted, mazuk, they become mixed with each other.
Get together.
Yeah. Then, so the Gvuris and the Chsadim come together, through a middle midah, Kav HaMachriya Umata Klapi Chesed, they go to the middle, but it's always points a little towards Chesed, He Midas HaRachmim. I want to stop over here. We're obviously we have to continue on this next week, but he's saying over here that when you have the Gili of the Ein Sof, so then what's interesting is that Alter Rebbe, what he does not say is, he doesn't say Chesed stops being Chesed and Gevura stops being Gevura, but instead what happens is Chesed could be Chesed and Gevura could be Gevura, and they can actually get along with each other and complement each other, and as we'll see, together they form a new midah which is called Rachamim, which we'll learn about Rachamim, which we'll learn about next week.
Both of them good.
When both of them come together, Chesed and Gvura, they come together, and when Chesed and Gvura come together, we get a midah called Rachamim. But what's important to remember over here again, it's not pshat we say that when there's the Gili, the Ein Sof, so Chesed stops being Chesed, and Gvura, Chesed loses its identity, and Gvura loses its identity, and therefore, if both of them don't have an identity, they can get along with each other. No, that's not what he's saying. Within their existing identities, Chesed and Gevura, they retain their identities, but their identities, because they're now bottled to Hashem, they can actually get along with each other. Chesed and Gevura can get along with each other.
I mean, they can compromise with each other?
They get along with each other, they mix with each other, they compromise, but not by losing their identity. Because they lose their identity, then you have no more midas. And we'll continue on this more next week. But I want to connect this a little.
Rabbi, before you continue, a human being has argument, they can sit down and talk among themselves. Malachim cannot do that.
Sorry, what can't do it?
Human being, they have argument. They sit down and talk.
We spoke about this. We explained why.
So Malach cannot do it. If a human being can do it, Malach cannot do it.
I know, but we spoke about that. I said, because if I'm Chesed and you're Gevura, you have a little Chesed, I have a little Gevura. The Malachim, their essence is Chesed, and his essence is Gevura. I mentioned this beforehand. So this obviously is very connected. We talk about Techai Elul. I'll make the connection in a moment. This week's parsha begins with the words V'hoya ki savi ala aretz asher Hashem elekecha noisem lecha. What's like v'yirishta v'yishafta ba? Well, something along those lines. And the pasuk introduces the mitzvah of bikurim. And Rashi says right over there in the beginning, the first Rashi, the parsha, Rashi says that the fact the pasuk says V'hoya ki savi ala aretz, and then the pasuk says v'yirishta v'yishafta ba. So this teaches us that the mitzvah of bikurim, it only took effect after kibush. V'chaluka. Kibush v'chaluka. After Yidden conquered all Eretz Yisrael, and after it was completely divided amongst the Shvatim. So the Rebbe speaks about this and whole arichas because we know in general there's a rule that whenever it says V'hoya ki savi ala aretz, it means after Yerusha v'yeshiva, after, not, doesn't mean that the day that they crossed the Yarden, but after Yerusha v'yeshiva. So here also we have the lashon V'hoya ki savi ala aretz.
But
So why do you have to have the V'yirishta v'yeshavta ba? Just the words kisavei already indicates that we're talking about after the Yidden already settled in. But then it points out that Rashi is saying here something unique. The mitzvah of Bikurim only went into effect not after Yerusha v'Yeshiva. Yerusha v'Yeshiva means after I got my land and I settled it. No, Rashi says Bikurim went into effect after Kibush v'Chiluk, after the whole of Eretz Yisrael was conquered and divided amongst the Shvatim. Which means, it took 14 years for that process to complete itself. That means if in year 3 or year 4, I had already conquered, my Shevet had conquered my area, and I have already settled my area, and I have my field, and I planted my field, I was not Chayiv and Bikurim until after all of Klal Yisrael was in their place, which is very different. That's a new level. Now, the mitzvah of Bikurim is the point of Bikurim, as we know, it's a mitzvah of Hakaras HaTov. So, the mitzvah that symbolizes more than anything else the importance of gratitude and expressing our gratitude. So you think into it. If I have my parcel of land, I have my field, I have my orchard, I planted my wheat, and I planted my pomegranates and dates, and I have a wonderful harvest. Why should I not take my harvest to the Mishkan and express my gratitude to Hashem and bring Bikurim? Because there's another Yid and another Shevet that doesn't have. That's why I'm not mechuyev. That's why I'm not obligated to express my personal gratitude to Hashem. If I have my land, why shouldn't I be mechuyev? So the Rebbe explains that the mitzvah of Bikurim is connected with the idea of Simcha. As the pasuk says, "V'samachta b'chol hatoiv." And there are many halachas which relate to this. That it has to be done dafka in a time of Simcha and a way of Simcha. And if there's missing a certain element of the Simcha, then you can't. Mevin v'loikoiden, but then you can't read the psukim v'rami yoivedavi. Meaning that Bikurim is, it's about gratitude, but it's about gratitude that comes from a place of tremendous simcha. I'm so happy that I want to go express my gratitude to Hashem. And if I have my field, but there's another Yid who doesn't have their field yet, I don't have Shleimus HaSimcha, I cannot be fully happy, I cannot go bring Bikurim and express my gratitude to Hashem and proclaim to be truly happy if there's another Yid that has not yet been allotted his field and has not yet settled in Eretz Yisrael. And this is connected to what we're talking about over here in our Pedic over here. The idea of Avos Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael, and as I mentioned, today is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. And one of the big ideas of the Baal Shem Tov was this idea of Avos Yisrael. And Avos Yisrael doesn't mean that anyone loses their identity as a Yid. Their individual identity. Before the Baal Shem Tov came around, so Klal Yisrael was divided into so many different classes. Starting with, there was the scholarly class of Talmidei Chachamim, who looked down very much so at the laymen, at the lay people who were largely ignorant because most Yidden weren't able to afford at that time to give their children a proper chinuch and a proper education. And the Baal Shem Tov came along and said, every single Yid, we're all the same. What does it mean we're all the same? You're a big lamdin, and you finish the whole Shas, and you make Chidushim, and you're a simple Yid who you say Tehillim, and you trip over the words, you don't understand the word of what you're saying. But that's only the tziyur. That's only your form, your external form. B'pnimius, what are you and what are you? Both of you, what are you?
Same.
Evidence.
You're Eved Hashem. Ani nevresi l'shamish es koini. You the Lamdan, you were created to serve Hashem, and you give Hashem nachas by you doing what you do. And you the simple person, you the balagala, right, the water carrier or the wagon driver. At the essence, you're the exact same. All Yidden, we're all one. We're all one Nekuda. What is our one Nekuda, which is that? We're here, we're brothers, and we're here to serve on Avda the Kuchabrichu. We're servants of Hashem. And once we uncover that core, the core of what a Yid is, then we all get along with each other, we all respect each other. And not by each one of us losing our identity. Not that the Lamdan becomes Ois Lamdan, and not that the simple Yid becomes Ois Simple Yid. Within your particular definition, within your particular who you are, being able to reveal the essential nature of what you're doing, and once you have that, if we can be all sitting here on the table, but if you all recognize who we are, because we have the Gili of the Eir Insaf and the words of the Tanya over here, we're in the presence of Hashem, and we have the Shivisi Hashem L'Negdi Samin, then all the differences go away. And then Al Yidin are Achim Mamish, we're all brothers, and yes, my Simcha then is not complete until the last Yid, Shevet Dan, or whichever other Shevet it may be, is able to get his Chelek in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah.
Out of ignorance, I just want to Terry Lumen, sorry. When did this business with the birthday start?
What
As we celebrate the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and about Tanya, at what point did it start?
It's a great question. I will look into it. In other words, I know by the Chabad Rabbeim.
Tanya celebrated his own birthday. You can't believe it.
By the Chabad Rabbeim, it was always celebrated.
Always what? We have evidence for that?
I believe so. We can look into it.
Did the Rebbe, the last Rebbe, did he celebrate his birthday?
He absolutely celebrated his birthday. He made it for Reagan for his birthday.
For birthday.
60th birthday.
And that's why when
But he shared it.
that's a long time ago.
I don't know
Happy
if
birthday.
not just fascinated by
He did.
He also did?
Yeah, and in the lifetime of the Frierdiker Rebbe, in the Hayim Yoim, we have the birthday of the Frierdiker Rebbe is mentioned,
They didn't make it for break.
and the Rebbe Rashab would say Chassidus on his birthday. We could, but this is a little off topic. We,
I just want to,
yeah, it's a very legitimate question. Very legitimate. Okay.
That's where it comes.
So as mentioned, by the way, the first big deal we make out of birthdays is Moshe Rabbeinu, because Haman didn't think it was a big deal his birthday, and that was his fatal mistake.
see, the first time is that power.
Ich verstehe. But I'm saying is, amongst Klal Yisrael, Haman had the same thing. A birthday, big deal, big. And he ended up being hung because of that little mistake that he made. Because he didn't realize that Kedai Aleida Shetachaper Ala Misa, as Rashi says. Anyways.
Yeah.
The Baal Shem Tov was born in the year Tov Nun Ches, the year 1698.
You're not.
Yes. And the Alter Rebbe was born in the year Tov Kufei, which is Kahas, which is 1745, which means that the day when the Alter Rebbe was born was the 47th birthday of the Baal Shem Tov.
Correct.
And the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, he makes a note of this. He says that the day when the Alter Rebbe was born is the day when the Baal Shem Tov began saying Kapitel Mem Ches in Tehillim, the 48th Perek of Tehillim, because you know there's a minig that every day to say the Kapitel Tehillim of your year, but you don't say how old you are, you say, if you're 47, you say Kapitel 48 because that's the year that you're in. You entered year 48. So the Frierdiker Rebbe again, he says that the day when the Alter Rebbe was born was the day when the Rebbe, when the Baal Shem Tov started saying Kapitel Mem Ches, which begins with the words Gadol Hashem Be'ir Elikenu. Kapitel Mem Ches. Now, which is interesting. Why is that relevant? On the day when the Alter Rebbe was born, the Baal Shem Tov started saying the kapitel which begins with the words with Gadol Hashem Be'ir Elikenu. Why is that relevant? Now, on these words, Gadol Hashem Be'ir Elikenu, The Mekubalim say something interesting. They say, Godel Havaya, Hashem is the Yud Kei Vav Kei, Godel Havaya. When is Havaya great? Kishahu Be'ir Elikenu, when he is to be found in the city of Elikim. Godel Havaya, when is Havaya? When is Yud Kei Vav Kei great? Godel Havaya Be'ir. When Havaya is to be found Be'ir Elikenu, in the city of Elikim. Obviously, it's a mysterious statement. What does that mean? So Chassidus, it's explained that we know that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and we'll talk about this with Shemos a little more next week about the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the name of Hashem, which is Ein Sof. It's called the Shem HaEtzem. It is the essential name of Hashem. And we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei is Achdus, absolute Achdus. Hoya Hoy Ve'Yeh Ke'echad. There's no differentiation there. It's Achdus Pshuta. So where does multiplicity come from? If everything comes from Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Achdus, where does the Ribui, this world, which everything is a Ribui in this world? There's so many different, a variety of millions and billions and trillions and infinite amount of different creations. Where does that come from? The answer is, that comes from Shem Elikim. And by the way, your hint is Shem Elikim. Elikim is Lashem Rabim. Already implies that the Shem Elikim is the source for Ribui, the source for multiplicity. Meaning that Havaya, Bereshis Bara Elikim, right? So the oir from Shem Havaya itself cannot create multiplicity. Only as the oir comes through Shem Elikim and it is filtered and contracted through Shem Elikim, that's how we have Ir. What is a city? Ir Elikenu. What is a city? The definition of a city is, you have a city is made up of many neighborhoods, which is made up of many houses, which is made up of many rooms, which is made up of many stones, right? A city is a metaphor for a collective which contains so many different individual units. Ir Elikenu. Where does the Ir come from? The idea of city, the idea of Ribui comes from Elikenu. However, what do we say? Godel Havaya Be'ir Elikenu. Where do we have the greatness of Havaya expressed? Dafke Be'ir Elikenu. What does that mean? We're talking about now we're in the Perek. In the realm of Havaya, where there's only absolute unity, when there's only Einod Milvadeh, when there's only a Lakus, that's not the ultimate greatness of Hashem. Where is the ultimate greatness of Hashem? When you have Ir Elikenu, when you have Taka, different entities and different mitzias, and you have Michal, and you have Gavriel, and you have fire, and you have water, and you have different people and different Yidden and different objects, and each one of them is a separate mitzias. And at the same time, when every one of those entities, which are so different from each other, when each one of them expresses Ano Avda de Kuchabricho, that what am I? That my whole mitzias, my whole mahus is Bittul to Hashem, that is the godless of Havaya. Where do we see the godless of Havaya, the greatness of the Ur and Saf? When the Ur and Saf extends even into the Ir Elikenu, even into the area where there are different parameters and different definitions, and yet everything is just an expression of the greatness of Hashem, that is the ultimate Gadol Havaya. When Michal and Gavriel, when both of them, and Michal remains Michal, and Gavriel remains Gavriel, and Chesed remains Chesed, and Gevura remains Gevura, but each one of them only is completely bottled an expression of Hashem, that's the Gadol Havaya. And this is the Kapitel Tilim which the Baal Shem Tov began saying in the Alter Rebbe's, the day the Alter Rebbe was born. The Baal Shem Tov introduced the idea of Achdus Hashem into the world. Obviously, that was introduced with Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. But during the time of the Baal Shem Tov, we had this, and we learned Sharich V'Amunah on the very first Perek, the idea of that Hisavus Timidus, the world is being created every moment by Hashem, and therefore Eined Milvadeh, as a concept, as a kernel of an idea. This was something which the Baal Shem Tov taught, and the Baal Shem Tov was very passionate about. Idea of bittul. But then came along the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe, he started Chassidus Chabad. And what is Chassidus Chabad? Chassidus Chabad, interestingly, is not really about bittul. Chachma Bina Das means I have to understand Hashem, you have to understand Hashem, and you have to understand Hashem, and I understand Hashem in my way, and you understand Hashem in your way, and you understand Hashem in your way, and each one of us is different, and Ein Day Same Shabbos. But when we say you have to understand Hashem, that's not an abnegation. That's not a denial of your Metzias. No. We're saying in your Metzias, the Gadol Hashem has to be in Ir Lekenu, in your mind also. Every single one of us, in our Metzias, in who we are, in the way we understand, that our perceptions, when we learn Chassidus, when we learn Tanya, when we learn Chassidus Chabad, what we have over here is that every single one of us, it becomes an expression of the Gadol Havaya. Because each one of us, we don't lose our identity, but our very identity actually mirrors the greatness of Hashem. And that is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is not that there's a world, Hashem created a world, Oisvelt, no more. All becomes back in, reverts into nothingness and everything is Hashem. No. Hashem created a world because He wants a world. But that every single element of the world, in its own Metzias, should reflect the emes of Hashem, the emes of Gadol Havaya. And we'll continue with Hashem next week. Shabbos.